Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in. Glad to have you with me. President Trump said he will hold off on his plan to attack Iran today at the request of leaders in the Middle East, indicating a peace deal could be imminent. We have all the details for you. The alleged gunmen in a shooting rampage that left 3 people dead outside a San Diego mosque have been identified as a 17 and 18-year-old males who left a suicide note for their parents. We have the latest details on this deadly attack yesterday. Senate Republicans confirmed nearly 50 of President Trump's picks for energy and land management, taking advantage of a Senate rules change that allows him to confirm a batch of nominees in one sitting. And SC GOP Chairman Drew McKissick joins us to talk about redistricting and the federal lawsuit the party is filing against the state to force closing the primaries in the Palmetto State. There's a lot to cover. Let's get started.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
This is shaping up to be one of the most disturbing hate crime investigations in recent memory out of San Diego, and it raises serious questions about warning signs, mental health, access to weapons, extremist ideology among young people once again. It's like the same discussion we have over and over when we have a shooting, a deadly shooting involving a young man. In this case, 2 young men. According to investigators, 17-year-old Kane Clark and 18-year-old Caleb Velasquez are accused of carrying out the deadly shooting outside the Islamic Center of San Diego that left 3 people dead, including security guard and father of 8, Amin Abdullah. Authorities say both suspects were later found dead from apparent self-inflicted gunshot wounds inside a white BMW just blocks away from the mosque. What a waste of 2 young lives. What investigators are now piecing together paints a very troubling picture. A parent reportedly called police shortly before the attack to report a runaway juvenile believed to be suicidal. The mother allegedly told officers several firearms were missing from the home. Investigators say the suspects were dressed in camouflage. Anti-Islamic writings were allegedly discovered inside the vehicle. Authorities also reportedly found hate-filled messages written directly on the firearms. One suspect allegedly left behind a suicide note referencing racial pride. All of these things are just the classic profile that we're now seeing with young men this age who evidently are miserable with their own life, have nothing to look forward for, no hope, and they try to take other lives and then take their own. Police have not formally announced a motive yet, but law enforcement sources indicate the investigation is being treated as a possible ideological motivated attack. The speed of the police response likely prevented even greater tragedy, according to local law enforcement. Officers reportedly arrived within 4 minutes, and between 50 and 100 officers swept through the mosque, surrounding the buildings to secure worshipers, staff, and children inside the Islamic Center. Thank goodness they were able to do that. Thank goodness. Look, any loss of life is too much, but this could have been much worse. Imam Taha Hassan later confirmed everyone inside the school and mosque complex had been safely evacuated. One of the suspects, Kane Clark, was reportedly a wrestler at Madison High School. His grandfather told reporters the family was shocked and devastated by the allegations. Now, just get ready, because this is probably going to reignite a national debate over online radicalization, youth mental health, access to firearms in homes, and the rise of extremist rhetoric targeting religious communities. Because these two young men probably spent a lot of time on a computer, on the internet. Some of the things that they did, like the anti-Islamic writings that allegedly were discovered inside the vehicle. Some of the writings, the hate-filled messages written directly on the firearms. Those are things that other shooters in the past, young shooters, have done. These boys saw this online. They studied it. And they tried to duplicate it. Again, how bad do you have to get as a young man to come to the place in your life that you want to kill others and take your own life? You don't want to live anymore. You know you're going to die. So I assume your goal is to kill as many people as you can before you die. Perhaps one of the biggest questions investigators will now face is whether there were enough warning signs beforehand to stop this before innocent lives were lost. Now, it's easy for us to have that conversation now. It's easy for us to debate what authorities should have done, what the parents should have known, because this terrible, horrible crime has already been committed. But put yourself in those parents' shoes. Yes, parents have trouble with 17 and 18-year-old boys. That's a hard time in life. That's a hard age for some young men. Yes, there may have been troubling things. But is there any parent out there who thinks their child is about to go shoot somebody in a mosque? I mean, if the parents had thought that, based on the information that I've been able to arrive at with these parents, they're very responsible. They surely would have been the first to call authorities if they had suspected their kid of doing this type of thing. We also learned that the San Diego police chief, Scott Wall, in talking about the parents, the mom especially, who around 9:42 a.m. Contacted authorities, reported her son missing. She thought something was up. According to Wall, the situation escalated as the mother began to piece together bits and pieces of information, relayed them to investigators. So you see, she was trying to help. She is trying to keep her son from hurting others and possibly hurting himself. Chief Wall said during an evening news conference, with this information, she believed her son was suicidal. She may not have known or even thought that he might want to take others with him before he took his own life. Police later connected the runaway investigation to the shooting at the Islamic Center after the fact. Now, of course, this has put larger cities all across the country on high alert. New York Police Department said that it is increasing patrols around mosques across New York City following this deadly shooting. In a statement on X, NYC said the NYPD is closely monitoring reports of an active shooter at the Islamic Center of San Diego. While there's currently no known nexus to New York City or specific threats to New York City houses of worship, out of an abundance of caution, the NYPD is increasing deployments to mosques across the city. Safe thing to do. Good thing to do. Smart thing to do. Because maybe there's another young man out there who's watching this on YouTube right now about this shooting. He's miserable. he's ready to take his life. So maybe he says, well, I'll go down to my local mosque and shoot it up. The increased police presence, of course, comes just weeks after the NYPD officers responded to protests and unrest outside a Park East synagogue in Manhattan, where anti-Israel demonstrators clashed with police. Remember this? Near the barricade surrounding the synagogue. Following those incidents, city officials and Jewish leaders called for stronger protections around houses of worship amid growing concerns over religiously motivated violence and some of the protests and threats and intimidations that were taking place. It is a sad, sad world when we have to have this conversation and when mosques and other religious houses of worship have to be protected from things like this. There's a moment no one wants to talk about with weight loss. It's the moment it stops working. Joey Hudson here. The diet that worked before doesn't. The workouts don't hit the same. Even eating less stops moving the scale. That's not random. That's your body protecting itself. Because when your body thinks it's under stress, it slows your metabolism, holds on to fat, and fights you every step of the way. That's why quick fixes eventually fail. Even the popular GOP one-shots, they suppress appetite, but they don't fix what caused the problem. At PhD Weight Loss, they focus on restoring your metabolism so your body stops fighting you. That's when the real change happens. And right now, when you call or mention Joey, you're going to get 2 weeks free, and they'll pay for the cost of your food. Just call 864-644-1900. Do it right now and get ready for the summer. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com, because the goal isn't to lose weight once. It's to never have to start over again. Call today and tell them Joey sent you. Some good news out of the Middle East, at least for now anyway. President Trump said he's going to hold off on his plan to attack Iran today at the request of leaders in the Middle East who believe they're close to maybe a peace. President at a White House event yesterday said, we were getting ready to do a very major attack tomorrow, and I put it off for a little while, hopefully maybe forever, but possibly for a little while, because we've had very big discussions with Iran. We'll see what that amounts to. He said, I was asked by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and some others if we could put it off for 2 or 3 days, a short period of time, because they think they are getting very close to making a deal. Now, this may be another instance of Iran just delaying, kicking the can down the road. Iran may have convinced Saudi Arabia that, hey, we're close, we're ready to deal. We'll see. It's worth taking the chance, though, isn't it? It's worth delaying this a day or two in hopes that maybe we do get a peace agreement. The president's remarks came about an hour after he fired off a social media post announcing that he would delay new strikes amid progress in negotiations. He wrote, serious negotiations are now taking place. He added that the leaders believed a deal will be made which will be very acceptable to the United States of America as well as all countries in the Middle East and beyond. This deal will include, importantly, no nuclear weapons for Iran, in all caps. That's the deal we've all been waiting on. That's the whole reason that the United States and Israel is involved in this to begin with, is to make sure Iran never gets a nuke. The president's been prepared to restart Operation Epic Fury after the ceasefire, which began on April the 8th and has continued to drag on without any progress made toward a deal. Again, it's a very precarious situation because we don't really know who we're dealing with. We don't know who's calling the shots in Iran. It's hard to negotiate if you cannot negotiate in good faith, if you cannot come up with a deal that you know the other party will honor. There is no honor among Iran right now. Apparently, there may be even conflict within their own leadership as to what they will do next. Now, an intervention from the Qatari Emir, the Saudi Crown Prince, and the UAE president made the president decide to back off momentarily. 3 credible negotiators who seem to think they may have an agreement. Again, it's worth waiting. But Trump is prepared. He's ready to launch another military assault if no peace deal is made. I think Iran may know that. I suspect that Iran was watching the Sunday shows and heard all the things, heard Senator Lindsey Graham say, let's just go back at it. Let's just take them out. The president saying he's instructed Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, General Daniel Kane, to be prepared to go forward with a full, large-scale assault of Iran on a moment's notice in the event that an acceptable deal is not reached. And that's the key here, and that's what Iran has to understand. We're ready. You make the wrong move, you make the wrong decision, we don't have to, it's not going to take us days to gear back up. All the president has to do is give the command, and the mighty force of the U.S. military will come raining down on you once again. The president told the New York Post yesterday that he didn't have time to chat about Iran as too many things are happening. But he did warn that Tehran knows what's going to be happening soon, adding that he was not open to any concessions. The president's been pressuring Iran to concede to his demands regarding ending its nuclear program. That's the ultimate goal. That is our only goal. To date, Tehran has been reluctant to do so, even though their country has taken a beating. President Trump described the apparent peace deal progress as a positive development, suggested talks are more advanced than previous ones that failed to result in a deal. He told the media at the White House yesterday, we've had periods of time where we thought we were pretty much getting close to making a deal and it didn't work out, but this is a little bit different now. So I don't know what's different. I hope he's right. I hope it is different, because it's time for us to get things settled down in the Middle East and get back to normal life. Get back to $2 a gallon gasoline. It's killing us. Taking to social media to add to the pressure yesterday, the president warned that Iran had to move fast or there won't be anything left. The clock is ticking. Wonder who is monitoring President Trump's social media in Iran? Because you know they are, don't you? You know they're reading every word he posts, and he knows that as well. That's his back channel way of getting messages to whoever the leaders are in Iran. We don't have to have the spies lurking around in the shadows these days, listening or taking notes back and forth. Just look at Truth Social. You know exactly what he's thinking. The president gave some indication to reporters over the weekend that he would accept a 20-year suspension of its nuclear program by Tehran. However, it's unclear if that option remains on the table. He said 20 years is enough, but the level of guarantee from them is not enough. In other words, it's got to be a real 20 years. The president's been showing signs of frustration because the negotiations have been slow. And Donald Trump is not used to waiting on anybody. According to reports he gathered, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff at his Washington, D.C. golf club this past weekend for a planning session. Wouldn't you love to sit in and just listen to some of those conversations among men like that? The president also spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as he prepared to order another attack, we're told. Now, again, you got Lindsey Graham, close friend of the president's, Sunday calling for U.S. forces to strike anyone who comes within a certain distance of Iran's nuclear material, calling it the circle of death. Lindsey Graham, he was on NBC Meet the News. I shared some of that conversation with you in yesterday's show. If you missed it, go back and listen to the podcast. Just search for Joey Hudson, Just the Truth, wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can hear. Lindsey Graham wasn't mincing words. He was encouraging the president to open fire, to just take whatever is left in Iran, take it out. And he specifically talked about energy infrastructure, just debilitating their energy infrastructure to where life would be miserable in Iran. Now, Senator Jack Keane acting Army Chief of Staff at the start of the Iraq and Afghanistan war, yesterday told Fox News the U.S. and Israel are ready to possibly launch a new round of attacks relying on intelligence collected since the 6-week-old ceasefire began. I imagine that they've been able to get quite a bit of intelligence within the country. Kane said on America's Newsroom, it'll be a combined operation with the United States and Israel going full throttle, all out, no half measures here whatsoever. The president has exhibited a huge amount of patience here since the ceasefire began on April the 8th, and we tried to work a deal with these guys, and it just doesn't seem possible. So again, all indications are we're going to be patient maybe another day or two. And Iran, if you don't come around, Iran, you're going to be hurting. You think you're hurting right now. You don't know what hurt is based on what the president has been saying this past week or so. Look, whatever plans the president had to restart Operation Epic Fury can be started at a moment's notice. Yes, he put them on hold for now, for today. But he can resurrect them at any point. Two Pakistani sources told the New York Post they continue to believe progress is coming with the ongoing indirect negotiations. Meanwhile, the critical Strait of Hormuz remains closed. Gas prices remain high, as you know. The national average sits at $4.52, with prices continuing to climb ahead of the holiday weekend. It's just the perfect storm for higher gas prices. It's just crazy that we are in just about over May, heading into the summer with midterm elections, kind of like COVID was. Remember how COVID just snuck up on us? We had no idea it was about to happen, and it just crippled the economy. I'm afraid this war with Iran is doing the same thing because it's hurting a lot of people. Hopefully, the Iranians will wake up and they'll act very quickly. What if I told you there's a government-backed prescription drug website quietly helping some Americans slash their medication costs by hundreds of dollars, and it hardly has anybody talking about it? We're uncovering the surprising savings behind President Donald Trump's expanding Trump RX program, including why companies like Amazon Pharmacy, GoodRx, and even billionaire Mark Cuban are suddenly involved. And the big question now is this: is Trump RX the beginning of real relief for struggling Americans, or just another Washington promise that sounds better than it works? Here's the story. For years, Americans have heard politicians promise they'd lower the cost of prescription drugs. How often have we heard that? How many times have you heard a presidential candidate, a U.S. Senate candidate, a congressional candidate say, we're going to lower prescription drug costs? Every election cycle, same speeches, same talking points, same promises. But then Americans walk into the pharmacy and reality hits. A bottle of medication costs hundreds of dollars. Insurance deductibles are sky high. Families are cutting pills in half just to make ends meet. And now President Donald Trump is trying to position himself as the man who can finally change that. This week, President Trump announced that more than 600 generic medications are being added to the government-backed discount drug website known as Trump RX. Now, whether you support President Trump or you oppose him politically, this is one of those issues that affects nearly every American family because everybody knows someone struggling with prescription drug costs. A senior citizen on a fixed income, maybe that's you. A diabetic trying to afford insulin. A small business who's trying to pay outrageous prices because their insurance coverage barely covers anything anymore. This hits real people, and that's why this story matters. Now, according to the White House, Trump RX has already drawn more than 10 million visits since launching earlier this year. And here's where this story takes a very interesting turn. The administration is now partnering with some very big names in the prescription drug business. Amazon Pharmacy, you don't get any bigger than Amazon. GoodRx, even billionaire entrepreneur Mark Cuban's Cost Plus drug company. Now think about that for a moment. Mark Cuban openly supported Democrats in the last election cycle. Yet now, he's publicly acknowledging that this program is helping Americans save money. That gets attention. And politically, it creates a problem for Democrats who have tried to dismiss Trump RX as nothing more than political branding. Now, to be fair, critics do raise some legitimate concerns. Some Democrats argue that certain medications listed on the site could already be found elsewhere for lower prices. Others point out that people with strong insurance coverage may not benefit much at all. And honestly, there's some truth in all of that. If you've gotten excellent employer-sponsored insurance with low copays, you may already be getting a decent deal. But millions of Americans are not in that category. Millions of Americans are stuck with high deductible plans where they're basically paying out of pocket for most prescription drugs anyway. And that's where generic drugs become critically important, because this expansion isn't just about expensive specialty drugs. This is about medications ordinary Americans use every single day. Again, maybe they're drugs that you take every day that you're going to benefit from Trump RX. Blood pressure medication, antibiotics, cholesterol medications, diabetes treatments, mental health prescriptions, things that Americans are taking every day and will have to take every day for the rest of their lives. Everyday medications that can be quietly destroy a household budget in just a moment, especially in times like today when we're in this affordability crisis. Washington has ignored that burden for years. You know what frustrates people the most? It's the feeling that America pays more than everybody else, and we do quite often. People see reports showing Canadians or Europeans paying dramatically less for the exact same medications produced by the exact same pharmaceutical companies. Many times, pharmaceutical companies that are headquartered right here in the good old United States of America. And Americans ask the obvious question: why are we getting ripped off? That frustration cuts across party lines. Republicans feel it. Democrats feel it. Independents feel it. I don't care what your political beliefs are. You feel it if you're in that category. And now President Trump is trying to capitalize on that frustration politically, while also positioning himself as someone willing to challenge the pharmaceutical industry. And look, Donald Trump is the man to do that. Now, let's pause right here, because that's an important part of this story. The pharmaceutical industry is one of the most powerful lobbying machines in Washington, D.C. These companies spend massive amounts of money influencing politicians, legislation, and public policy. They have an endless bucket for campaign contributions. Politicians love campaign contributions. That's how they keep getting reelected over and over again. So anytime a president, again, Republican or Democrat, starts pushing aggressively on drug pricing, there's going to be some resistance, a lot of resistance. And money talks. That's when they start calling in the chips that they've been purchasing with those campaign contributions. That's exactly what we're beginning to see. Democrats are already warning that Trump RX may be more marketing than meaningful reform. Meanwhile, Republicans are presenting it as a free market alternative to large government-run healthcare expansion. And politically, timing matters here, because affordability is becoming one of the biggest issues in America again. People are exhausted financially. Groceries are more expensive than ever. Insurance costs are climbing. Housing costs remain brutal in many parts of the country, and healthcare costs continue hammering working families like never before. People are struggling. That's what people talk about at church dinners and at Little League games, not ideological slogans. People want to know whether they can afford to live. And the White House clearly understands that heading into the midterm elections, this is important. Now, another major part of this story involves international drug pricing. President Trump says his administration is also negotiating with pharmaceutical companies to lower American prices closer to what other development countries pay. If that actually happens, it would be a major disruption in the healthcare industry, something we've never seen before. But there's still plenty of unanswered questions. The details of those negotiations have not been released publicly. We don't know yet. Lawmakers are demanding transparency, and frankly, they should, because anytime government starts making major deals with giant corporations behind closed doors, Americans deserve accountability. That's not partisan. That's just common sense. Now, here's what I think may ultimately determine whether this program succeeds. Simplicity. Keep it simple, stupid. Americans are tired of complicated systems nobody understands. They don't want another 400-page government program filled with bureaucracy, kind of like the Medicaid or Medicare leaflets that you get every year. You don't understand a thing that's in them. Americans want lower prices. That's it. It's just that simple. If somebody can help them pay $40 instead of $400 for a prescription, they're interested. You got their attention. And honestly, most Americans probably don't care whether the solution comes from Republicans or Democrats. They just want relief. That's why this story could become politically powerful, because healthcare affordability impacts almost every family in this country. And if Trump RX generally lowers costs for ordinary Americans, voters are going to take notice. But if it turns out to be mostly branding and headlines without meaningful savings, voters are going to notice that too. The truth is, Americans have heard promises about drug prices for decades. Now they're waiting to see who actually delivers results. And in this political climate, that could matter more than almost anything else. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. Have prescription drug prices affected your family personally? Are you paying more than you were a few years ago? Do you believe programs like Trump RX can actually help lower costs, or is this just another political talking point? Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Joining me on our guest line, Drew McKissick, chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party. Welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing well this morning. How about yourself?
I am wonderful. Last week turned into a pretty interesting week. So the South Carolina Senate voted not to pursue congressional redistricting. Then Governor McMaster changed his mind, I guess, and called the General Assembly back into session. The House gets back to work today. Then, as if that wasn't enough breaking news, you guys at the SCGOP announced that you'll be suing the state for not closing the primaries. You said
Correct.
that. You said that might be an option back early in the session. All right, so where do you want to start today?
Yep. Well, I guess first off, let's go with the top item on everybody's mind. I'm sure it's the district lines, potential district lines. You've seen the potential maps that are floating around. As you point out, the governor did call the legislature back into session on Friday. So the House met on Friday and considered not the map lines first, but the rest of the details that would have to surround this if they go forward, as in when would the primary be? When would the filing deadlines be?
Yeah.
What would happen to candidates who filed already and paid a filing fee in one district who are not in that district now? Do they get a refund? Who do they get it from? If they're still in the district, do they have to pay that fee again, or does the fee that they already paid qualify for this? There's a lot of details there that just needed to be fleshed out. So they worked on that. First of this week, they'll come in and actually consider the maps. That's the House. And then that means they'll send it over to the Senate. So let's say, working at the speed of legislative light, maybe the Senate may be considering this by Wednesday, probably if we're doing good.
Yep.
And then the question is, what happens to it there? Does the full Senate take it up and consider it, or do they first send it to the Judiciary Committee? And what does the Judiciary Committee do? And how fast do they move? And also these maps that we've seen, I'm told that, this represents, a starting place. So, there's a lot of, back and forth with folks about what those lines look like, counties that they split up and don't split up and so forth. And then, what shouldn't be lost in all this is, okay, what does the end resulting district look like politically? Are Republicans going to be able to win whatever that final, new district, if you will, when they redraw the seats? Does it look like? Can we win it? And have 7 congressional seats instead of 6? So that's really, to me, obviously as party chairman, that's the bottom line. Can we be confident that we will send 7 Republicans to Washington, D.C. instead of just 6? And, so they've got some arithmetic to do, but that's the main thing here this week is looking at the math.
Yeah. So based on what you've seen at this point, if there are not any major differences in the map, can we win all 7?
So the numbers I've seen for what is currently the 6th district would take it from, I want to say, 48% African-American to 38% African-American. And when you consider, let's say, it varies across the state. Let's say 85% of African-Americans, when they vote, tend to vote Democrat. Yeah. Now, that percentage has been coming down steadily over the years, not as fast as we would like it to, but it is coming down. So what does that do to that district? What are the rest of the partisan numbers like in that district? And this is a perfect segue in the second point that you mentioned a minute ago about partisan voter registration. It would be a whole lot easier for the legislature to draw lines that we could be 100% confident about as Republicans if we actually registered by party in South Carolina, which we don't do, unfortunately, because of the legislature. So, I'm cautiously optimistic, but again, at the end of the day, it's about the arithmetic, and they got to be very, very confident about it.
Yep. Drew McKissick is my guest today, chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party. All right, so let's just segue into the potential lawsuit. What do you hope the outcome is, and just kind of walk us through that process? Would a judge potentially just force the legislature to change the law, or?
Well, that's really hopefully what I think what we'll be looking for here legally is, we're suing essentially on 2 grounds. One, constitutional grounds, freedom of association. The current system that we have forces us to associate with people who are who don't necessarily consider themselves Republicans. Some who are Democrats, some are even liberals who want to come and vote in our primary for the candidate that they think may be easier to beat or the candidate that they think more aligns with them, depending on what part of the state you're standing in. It's a little different from area to area, but the point is, when we go do the most important thing that we can do, which is nominate a candidate to the ballot to represent us in that spot, to speak for us, that we're forced to associate with people who might not agree with us. That's unconstitutional. And by the way, Supreme Court case, 1986, Connecticut GOP, very, very similar situation, but it was the opposite. They had closed primaries in Connecticut, and the Connecticut GOP wanted independents to be able to vote in their primary, and the state said no. Yeah. They took it to the Supreme Court. 1986 U.S. Supreme Court, in a decision written by Thurgood Marshall, by the way, said parties have a right to freedom of association. Connecticut GOP should be able to associate with independents if they want to. This is the same principle, just in a different direction. And I look at it this way. If the Supreme Court in 1986, with Thurgood Marshall on it, can find freedom of association in the Constitution, I think one today, based on the nominees we've got on the court today, with the Trump court, if you will, I think they can find freedom of association. That's one issue. The other issue is current state law says political parties have the right to further define qualifications for membership and also qualifications for vote or participating in our primary. But then the law doesn't go on to give us the means of identifying anything to identify people with, such as partisan voter registration. So we would be suing in federal court, looking for a federal judge essentially to point out or recognize that the state law is broken, that it promises something that it does not deliver. That's an empty promise saying that we can further restrict it, but then it doesn't allow us to restrict it. Yeah. And ordering the legislature to essentially fix the problem.
Yeah. So assuming that you are successful in court, and who knows how long it would take to get to that point, what would the next step be, and how soon are we looking at 2028 possibly?
Well, I mean, in terms of primaries, yes, or hopefully maybe before our presidential primary, which will be coming up in most likely January or February of 28.
Yeah.
That's the next big stop on the political freeway here in South Carolina. I would hope that by moving forward with this lawsuit, that come next legislative session, if the lawsuit has not been, resolved by that point in time, it will put that much more pressure on the legislature to actually move. But I can't say I'm confident of that. I'm just riding with the fact that we've been at this for a long time with the legislature. We've got nothing to show for it, so we're going to go to federal court and hopefully get a fair shake.
Yeah. Drew McKissick, chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party, always a pleasure. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you, sir. You have a good one now.
Yes. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.